There we go. Just gonna light some sage as I normally do.
Yep. I'm getting the rose incense going.
Oh, very nice. I love
It's my
rose incense.
favorite. I get it from Saima. Saima's, it's so pure.
Very nice. Something about, I like sage, but Palo Santo I like way more. But with the work I do, we need to bring out the big guns.
Yeah, you're clearing. You're clearing. I'm bringing in spirit, like divine feminine. Bring in the divine feminine. You're like, bring in
I
the
like
blood
sage,
torch.
you chase them out and then you invite them back in.
My family has such a reaction to sage. They for many years were like, just stop with the sage. I don't know if I oversaged. So then I moved to cedar.
Cedar's nice.
Cedar's really nice. It's got protective and spiritual qualities. And then I'm in the stage of the divine feminine. So I'm in rose now.
I like eucalyptus as well. I've been using eucalyptus quite a bit and lavender. Yeah. The more you travel around the world, the more you realize that everybody smudges, but they smudged with different stuff.
It's true. What frequencies are they working with, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what herbs do they have in there, that are local?
Yeah.
I'll show you since we're on the topic really quick. These I have on my altar right now. Check these out. Aren't these pretty?
Wow. Is this from Scotland?
These are from South Africa.
Wow.
And
so what is that a mix of, Lara? What is that?
There's different herbs on these.
Uh-huh.
This one is lavender, impepo, rhinoceros, and pine needles.
Okay.
And this one is lavender and impepo. So this is a natural South African smudge stick.
Yeah, they mix it up.
Yes. Impepo is very similar to sage.
They're like, we're getting rid of entities. We're calling in angels. We're
exactly.
We're going to do it all with one smudge stick.
Well, they're so pretty. I haven't burned them yet because I'm like, I can't. They're too nice looking.
Got to use them.
Yeah. Palo Santo is good all around because it comes to call in the good vibes after, you know what I mean? It's not just about the cleansing, it's about the uplifting, which is also important.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Are you able to see the comments? Yeah?
Oh, right. Yeah.
We had some glitches yesterday and Ferris couldn't see them, so I'm wondering if you can. I hope you can.
Yep. Just had to.
Wonderful.
Good morning, everybody. Hello.
Nice to see everyone today. How's everybody handling those crazy energies the last few days, huh? That full moon in Scorpio knocked me on my ass. And then we had like 5 massive solar flares, 2 of which were X-class, and the other 3 were very close to X-class. So they were pretty intense. It's been hard to like move, do stuff, and like adult the last few days. Anybody else notice?
Yeah, I have a daughter who is so affected by the moon that anytime there's big moon energy, the house turns into chaos.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that veil is getting thinner than ever. And the more thin it gets, it's like the more energetically sensitive a lot of people are getting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's intense. These are intense times. Michelle, it feels like every other month I'm saying, hey, how's the energy? The energy's nuts. Have you seen the Schumann resonance? What's going on? Like,
I know everything is just kind of ramping up, but I think that this is part of the shift. You know, you get periods where a lot happens at once, and then you have other periods where nothing happens for a while and it seems to drag on. Yeah. So when you have too many of those, and then you get some of those experiences where everything starts to happen at once, it causes a lot of panic, and people are like, make it stop. Start crying, uncle.
So Lara, what's your practice when shit starts to hit the fan? What's your practice? What is your go-to?
Grounding. I'm naturally ungrounded anyway, because I'm a bit like aloof, I guess you could say.
Well, you're spiritually connected. So when the upper chakras are connected.
So yeah, I definitely and ground myself. Hugging trees, walking barefoot. getting some fresh air, breathing in the, just I'd like to call in energy from the crown as well. If I visualize source energy coming in through the crown and balancing out my chakras, I've noticed does help, because your chakras, especially the lower three, can get kind of overstimulated, especially when you've been triggering survival energies. A lot of people are kind of in that survival mindset right now. And when that happens, your lower three get activated, but these start to shut down. They're like, you can deal with this later. You got to focus on survival right now, And so I tried to kind of keep it more balanced in that way when I notice that things are getting kind of chaotic, because it's very easy for our chakras to get out of whack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you go to the earth. Like that's your go-to. You go right into the earth.
Yeah. I love Pachamama. She's always very good as a support unit. Yep. Yeah. Just call on Gaia, go hug a tree. But it doesn't always work. I mean, some of us, we have really hard days when it feels like the rug is being pulled out from underneath us. And on those days, it's very hard to kind of keep yourself on an even keel. But we're learning, we're adapting as we go. We're all kind of, even the soul guides are like, like things are getting crazy even for our, standpoint. So,
well, for me, I need to look at what layer of my body is it hitting? Is it hitting my thoughts, and am I like spinning out mentally, or is my nervous system just activated and I'm just walking around like a raw nerve? So I'm always like looking at what layer of the body is this energy hitting me, because it's different with every energy.
Yeah, it really is.
It can be
and
different.
Everybody affects things differently. There's everybody is different with how they perceive these energies. And so a couple people messaged me going, what happened? Like last night, the energies were completely shifted. Even wondering if we jumped timelines. Yeah. So anything is possible, especially right now.
Yeah.
What do you do? You normally, you say you center yourself. Do you have any exercises or any breathing techniques or anything you do?
Well, once I figure out what layer of the body it's actually hitting me on. So if I'm starting to make up shit about things and I'm seeing my mind start to go a little wacky, I'll go in and really do that self-inquiry of like, oh, I'm making up a lot of shit about the workers who are working outside, like the things that I'm making up. So if it hits my mental body, I'll work to neutralize the mind and really start to see, because even when things are bringing stuff up, there's usually some good, I call it chewing the meat off of the bone, like a chicken wing. I'll chew the meat off of the bone, like whatever energies are going to bring up in me, I'll take it as my inner work. So if it's really stirring my thoughts about like Mother's Day, who am I as a mother? Am I a good mother? Am I a bad mother? Did I do right for it? Like when that stuff hits, I will just take it straight in and really start to digest like, oh, what's showing up here? Like it could be the moon that's bringing this all up. True. But like, what is it surfacing on the mental body? And then there are times where I just feel like a loose electrical wire and my nervous system is just shot, which luckily I'm right next to the ocean. So I'll like cancel the morning and I'll go to the ocean and I'll just lay down, and usually Gaia will, create enough negative ions to reset me. So it's important to know like what part of us, am I emotional? Am I mental? Am I nervous system activated?
Well, right now, I think everybody's nervous system activated, especially these energies lately. It's been intense. And my soul guide said, your nervous system, it pilots itself off of your nutrients that you have in your body. So on days where you have extra stress and everything's kind of chaotic, you start to deplete yourself of these nutrients. Yeah. And then when your nutrients go low and there's no longer any food to kind of, pilot the system, what happens is that your body starts to immediately just feel exhausted. You need rest and you need hydration. And so most people, though, are not getting the rest they need. They're not getting the hydration they need, and they're not getting the nutrients
sleep.
They need.
Like good quality sleep.
So it's like the triple whammy that hits you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's difficult.
And the fundamentals of taking care of the body is where it comes down to, right? Isn't that crazy? Like we want to make this so complex, but like, are we sleeping? Are we well hydrated with good water that has minerals, right? Are we eating foods that have prana, like live foods that have enough prana to sustain us and enough minerals? And my supplements are like the difference between my brain working and not working. Like, am I getting enough of the types of magnesium so that I don't have brain fog? Because I have chronic Bartonella and being from the Northeast, all kinds of stuff going on in my system. So what am I doing to keep the inflammation down so my body's not in that alert state? There's just so much physical care.
It's funny you say magnesium because I literally have it sitting here.
Right. And I have a 3-type magnesium. There's like several types of magnesium, right? So
I've been trying to muscle test because everybody is different. And so certain things might benefit you more than others or less than others. And so there might be better alternatives out there. So that's why I've been kind of letting my body decide what is best. And it's funny, there were these vitamins that they claimed to be all natural. And they were all healthy vitamins, and they were giving them out for free. And I looked at the date, and it expired like 3 days from when they were giving them out. And I was like, I'm going to muscle test this to see if these are actually as good and wholesome and natural as they claim. And it was like the no was so strong and nearly fell backwards.
Yeah.
They were like, no, don't even
well, not everybody doesn't have the same deficiencies either. Yeah. Right. So it can't be one size fits all. We have to intuitively or muscle test to really figure out what's missing.
Yep.
So different types, Leanne, there's different types of magnesium too. Some make you poop. Some just go straight to the brain. I take both, both types. I need it on both ends.
Hey, whatever works.
Yeah. Electrolytes. I have a water alkalinizer and ionizer. So that's a big part of my health regimen. That was a big investment that we made like 10 years ago to improve the quality of our water.
Yeah. The water is a big thing. And for a long time, I didn't even really think about the electrolytes. You just forget, you don't think about it. And so for a while I was drinking tons of water, but I kept feeling like there's no way I could quench my thirst.
Yeah.
Like I could keep drinking water all day long and my thirst was not getting quenched. And they're like, are you getting enough electrolytes? And I'm like, shit, you're right. No, I'm not.
Right.
So to add things to your water is actually quite important. If it's sea salt, or some sort of fruit, lots of different things help.
Yeah.
Listening to the body, though, is one of the most important things because many of us tend to ignore the symptoms until they get glaringly loud. And then when it gets to that point, you're kind of already trying to play keep up and you're dealing with multiple issues.
Yeah. In Ayurveda, they say that once something settles into the physical body, right, it's going to start in the more subtle realms. It starts like energetically, spiritually, energetically, mentally, and emotional. But once it settles in the physical body, like to reverse that just takes a lot of time. It can take a lot of time just because of where it's settled into the tissue of the body.
Yeah. My soul guys, the other day, there was a person that they said, oh my gosh, he is so badly dehydrated. His brain looks like a shriveled walnut. And I was like, wow. Okay. So in the act, I was like, wow. How do I even put that in there? They're like, just tell him to eat watermelon. A lot of it. I was like,
That's hilarious.
I don't mean to scare you, but your guides are saying,
water may be important at this point.
Just a bit. But that's one of the most common things that they said. Everybody is dehydrated. Everybody. Nobody drinks enough water.
Yeah. So in Ayurveda, they say the best way to hydrate down at the cellular level is ghee. Like ghee is the way to hydrate all the way down into the deeper levels because of that so what you're just naming is like deep, like water's not going to solve the scrunched brain, right? Like, so
Right.
hydration down at the level of the tissue is super important. And we are dehydrated. It's so funny. Like my kids grew up in like, we always had, the best water and the organic foods and all, like they know, and they'll sit there and they'll be like, I haven't drank water in days. And I'm like, oh, like, what are you doing to your machine? It's like running a car without any oil in it. Like, so it's
I'm
just
guilty of that. I've done that before too. And it's funny because I'll be like, I have a headache. Do you think it's a psychic attack? And I'll say to my guys, they're like, no, go drink some fucking water. I'm like,
yeah.
And my first thought is it a beastie? And they're like, no, you're just not taking care of yourself again.
Yeah. Ariana just put all of the different types of magnesiums and what they do. I just want to highlight this because magnesium is in charge of over 400 functions in the body. Like this has been when I was knee deep in Lyme disease. Actually, no, it was when I had COVID. When I had COVID, I had forgotten to take my triple column magnesium. And it was the difference between me feeling like a human being and feeling like I was like borderline suicidal. Like, and I'm not exaggerating. Like my thoughts got dark, my energy got dark, everything got heavy. And I was like, I wonder if this has. The next day I start back on my magnesium supplement, and it was like my brain was able to work again. And that was the point where I was like, I will never not take magnesium again. It had such an effect on the neural pathways. I mean, COVID was a really dark, heavy energy, or I don't, so there was stuff in my field because I was sick, but it was the magnesium that kept my brain functioning in the space of the illness, which I found was really fascinating. And that's where, because I do trauma healing, I do soul retrieval for trauma healing. So during COVID is where my work got so busy because the entity of COVID brought everybody's trauma to the surface. But it was fascinating to me how my brain felt neurosynaptically protected by the magnesium that I was taking. And I don't know how to put those things together, but I know that it was like night and day.
Wow.
Isn't that like,
say that you have a certain balance of chemicals in your body, and if that balance gets out of whack, you get out of whack. I really like the magnesium salts too. I use that in the bath. Last night I was like, I couldn't sleep, and I said, well, I was frustrated. It was like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So I said, I'm just gonna have a bath. And I did. I had a sea salt and magnesium salt bath, and I felt amazing, and I fell asleep shortly after. So
yeah,
I think it really does make a difference, and especially before bed. It's like setting the tone for the next day. Too, the things that your nighttime ritual, having a good ritual before bed, taking the things that your body needs to kind of sustain itself is one of the best things you can do for yourself, really.
Well, and salts are clarifying to the energy fields. I mean, you have a salt lamp, you take salt baths to spiritually, energetically clear your field. So there is a spiritual component to the magnesium salts also clearing the energy field. Salt will absorb that out of the body. So as people are saying, taking the Epsom salt bath, I take one every Friday morning. I do apple cider vinegar and Epsom salt bath every Friday morning, like without fail, to make sure that my body, so it's in the rhythm of my life, to whatever got caught in my energy field and whatever my body needs, because we can't always digest the magnesium or absorb it through digestion. So taking the salt baths really help pull it in as well.
There's this one client I had that has been dealing with severe psychic attacks for a while, and their body was very badly damaged by it. So the soul guides recommended a detox bath where they said 2 cups of sea salt, 2 cups of the magnesium flakes, 2 cups of sodium bicarbonate, and 2 cups of iodine. Into the water, into the bath, and to soak.
Yep. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I was like, damn, that's going to really help a lot, isn't it? And they're like, yeah, if they do it at least 3 times a week for the next 3 to 6 weeks, it will be a game changer for them.
Yeah.
Because their body was so heavy with chemicals and toxins and all that funk that they had to purge.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because the physical body is also holding the density, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's density. Yep. There's a neurochemical aspect to density. It's not just in the field outside of us. It's really crazy.
And I don't need to change the subject too much, but I am really also getting into the soul retrieval thing as well, because recently I've been finding there's a lot of self-care that we're trying to keep up with. And in regards to other versions of ourselves in other realities or other timelines or other versions of us as children or things like that, there's a lot of, what's the word I'm trying to find? It's almost like body trauma, where it's internalized trauma. It's not even here. It's here. And so when you,
Indeed.
I mean, so you don't even really know what you're dealing with. So for me, this is a big subject for me right now, because on my birthday the other day, I woke up feeling like absolute shit. And I was wondering why, because I'm like, I don't feel sick. I don't feel, you know what I mean? Like last night I felt fine. I had so much energy, and then I woke up feeling terrible. And they said, well, it doesn't help the energies right now. The energies are pretty crazy, but it doesn't help that you also had a past life resonance that was triggered. And I asked, what do you mean? What past life resonance? And they said, where you died at age 40 from disease. Literally, you died on your 40th birthday to this disease. And I felt like my whole body was under attack.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I sick? And they said, no, you're not actually sick. You're just you're basically channeling sickness from another version of yourself. And they said, and this is why you also feel a bit down today, because you were quite sad that you were dying on your 40th birthday in that other reality. So I'm like, wow, it's unbelievable that even some of our physical ailments, some of the things that we feel, could even be coming from another version of us in an alternate reality somewhere.
Yeah. So this is my wheelhouse. Can I play here? I have like so many.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. I wanted to hear what your thoughts would be about that.
So in modern psychology today, Bessel van der Kolk wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. So in modern psychology, they're starting to understand that trauma lives in the body. And in my work, even though I'm doing soul retrieval, someone will want to be working on past lives. And I'm like, well, whatever happened in the past life is living right here in your cellular structure, in your body, and will replay and reactivate into this lifetime. So if we really systematically work what is showing up in this lifetime, for example, I had this big reaction. It didn't make any sense. It was on my birthday. Perfect. There's going to be a set of body reactions, and there's going to be a set of vibrations in the body that tap right into a part of you that is not okay. And if we can take ourselves into that second dimension consciousness, again, I use the dimensions as per Barbara Hand Clow, because I know there's different wording and concepts on dimensions of consciousness. But if we take fourth dimension duality of like, oh, I'm upset right now, and we trace it into second dimension consciousness, it doesn't matter what lifetime it happened in, because those feelings are lived in this lifetime, in this moment. And it gives us access to be able to heal that in the present moment if we work with the part of ourselves in that dimension of consciousness, which is different than shamanic journeying, which happens through the third eye. I'm not talking about third eye journeying where and I've had those, that my spiritual awakening was in Sonoma with a soul retrieval with this really incredible gifted man. And that's what woke me up and really initiated me into this. But then it was 10 years before I actually started doing the soul retrieval work that came through to me. So It's different than journeying through the third eye, but really, like you just said, going into those body sensations and being able to work with it, even if it doesn't make any sense or it doesn't track with what's going on. The other piece is we have childhood trauma that gets stored in the body and then we'll reactivate into the present moment. And we're like, oh, I did that in therapy, or I did Reiki sessions, but because the physical body holds the trauma, it needs to be worked on every layer of the body because of the auto-associated neural networks that really lock that trauma. I call it a trauma packet, lock that trauma packet into the body. So anyway,
trauma is literally stored in your cells.
It's stored in our cells, and it's probably not even about this life.
Relative trauma, like our grandmothers and etc. That trauma is also being stored in the body.
The epigenetics.
Yeah.
But the cool thing, the way to simplify it, because I asked Divine, I'm like, we walk around with anxiety and depression for years, and like it's our birthright to heal. Like this feels like unnecessary suffering. Like, and I don't mean to invalidate those of us who spent decades. I was in a psychiatric hospital at 15 years old from bulimia. Like my path started at 15. So I'm not suggesting the mental health field is not valid, but like to spend decades in anxiety and depression, like that feels like it's unnecessary. And so to be able to go in, and what we see is in 2 months, people can get out of anxiety and depression if they're working it at root cause in the body. So like people will come in depressed, ready to leave a relationship. In 2 months, you work that systematically and rewire the way you think and the way you feel and the way you breathe, because there is the neuroscience of healing as well. The brain and the nervous system need to reacclimate to the deep work, but it can be healed at root very efficiently without having to chase every past life.
Right. Well, it's almost like you just need to treat the root of it. You don't even need to know what the past life was or what the trauma is. You just need to treat the emotional response that you have to that trauma. Because there may be a time in a lifetime where certain thing happened and you're like, well, okay. Like we don't really hold trauma to things like when we were animals, because a lot of times we have past life trauma. So I go back and I look and it's all human stuff. But what's interesting is that when I go and I check animals, I find past life trauma on the animals as well. There was a dog right there the other day who had a street dog life and was still traumatized from a street dog life that it had previously.
Right. Well, our trauma happens through the animal brain. So like it's stored in the animal brain. The fight or flight response is from the animal brain. So they're going to feel the trauma and store that trauma. They're just not going to have the prefrontal cortex activity about the meaning of the trauma. They're not going to make up stories. And that's actually what we want to get back to as well. We want to get out of all of the meaning. Well, I felt like I was unloved in that lifetime when my husband cut off my, guillotine me, right? Like, my husband took my head off. I felt unworthy and unloved. But now in this lifetime, I'm 40 years old and I'm still feeling unloved, but I'm with a family that loves me. And so the prefrontal cortex meaning that's put on the trauma and then carried from lifetime to lifetime is where we make it much more convoluted, because it can be healed in the present moment. We don't have to carry those stories, but they don't feel like stories. They feel like the physics of our ego personality. They feel like the physics of who we are. So to say to someone, oh, that's a story, is kind of an invalidation of who they've built themselves into. So we can't do it that way, but we can go into the story that lives in the body and work the sensations mentally, emotionally, energetically, physically in the nervous system and spiritually.
Now, see, one of the most common things, the advice that I may as well just copy and paste and put into almost every report is about releasing emotion, because too many people bottle up their emotions, especially men. No offense to the men or anything, but it's almost like
societally they're not allowed to be emotional.
Yeah, you don't, like, how dare you cry? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I'll give you something to cry about kind of vibes. And so we we bottle up those emotions, we don't release them, and then it ends up causing like existential crises all over the place. And especially in regards to trauma from the family, trauma from loved ones, you know, feeling of invalidation, neglect, abuse. And it doesn't even have to be, and this is the craziest thing I've realized, it doesn't even have to be a real memory, because false memories can also be implanted. There was somebody that had a very horrific memory in their head of their mom abusing them when they were very young. And as they got older, we looked into it and it never happened. Those memories were false. They were implanted or by either the ego or an entity.
Or karma.
Or karma, yes.
I've seen so much, like, for example, sexual assault karma, and it does run through lineage. But even if it didn't physically happen to someone in the lineage, they felt like they were sexually abused. And I think that's really valid and important. We'll see that a lot in our trauma work. And I'll just take that as fact. I'll be like, well, whether it happened or not, it feels like it happened.
Yes.
And if it feels like it happened, it's probably in the physics of the DNA, and that still needs to get worked. So it happened, it didn't happen. Everything's very elusive spiritually because we're taking on the lineage karma that comes down to us. And what is lineage karma? Probably a set of entities that follow a lineage. Like, I don't even know what lineage karma is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, some of this, I've even found a family a couple days ago that was scientists in Atlantis. And they have been, I mean, they've been plagued. Their whole family has been cursed for, I mean, countless generations. They've been suffering for pretty much every life they've had since Atlantis has been suffering. And I asked about it. I'm like, this is a lot of suffering on this family. Why is this happening? And they said, oh, karmic.
Karma. And
I was like, holy shit, how long is he going to settle with karma? Damn. Been 12,000 years. Surely, you know, it's like trying to pay off student debt. Your interest just keeps it going forever.
It follows us.
It does.
I have so many thoughts. What's
interesting about this one family too is that there were 2 starseeds in the family that tried to come in and make a shift in the family, and one of them had already chosen to leave prematurely, if you know what I mean, and the other is dealing with extreme psychosis and trauma. And they're not even part of that lineage. They chose to come into that bloodline to help the family. And they got, I mean, they got like bulldozed by the family karma just for the trying to help.
I think we see this so much. For me, the moment I understood my lineage karma, my grandmother was a hairdresser, all about beauty and being skinny. My mother was all about how everything looked. I come in, I have an eating disorder by the time I'm 13 years old. And then my youngest daughter is born, and she's born with a metabolic disorder where if she doesn't eat, she can die. And the moment she came in, I was like, oh, here it is. This is lineage karma right here. This is all the way down into the DNA. I can see food and body and survival all the way into her. And it was the moment, like, she's 16 now. It was the moment that I understood lineage karma. Like, I don't know, there was something in that I was like, oh, I get it. I get like how it just gets really seeped into a lineage. We see it with addiction. That's an easy one to be able to see gets passed down the lineage.
Oh yeah, especially alcoholism. Oh yeah, big time.
And that's a DNA piece. Like, there's a genetic piece, but there's also entities that follow the lineage as well. So so that multifaceted
thing we cleared for the record is family karmic tree. We call it like a tree because that's what it looks like. It's like a family curse tree. And we can actually go straight to the root of that tree and chop it down for the whole family. And that's my favorite thing to do in any clearing, is to find that and clear that, because you're freeing up. Sometimes it could be 100 people in that family tree. That tree over like 600 years since whenever their ancestor made that deal with that entity, that tree could be 150 people in that tree, and they're all cursed because of one ancestor.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. I could not believe it. People have no idea what baggage. And I've asked my guides about it too. I'm like, so what if you really, really want to be a part of this family, but you don't want to be a part of the curse and the karma? Like, how do you kind of like finagle your way around that? They're like, you don't. It's catch-22. It's pros and cons. If you want to be in a certain family, you got to take the good with the bad and vice versa.
Okay. So then we get to clearing, and forgiveness work and violet flame has been really powerful for me to be able to clear karma. So if we're the light worker of the lineage and we wake up, then we have the power to clear lineage. But it's not like a one and done thing. It's not like, oh, someone cut the cords and like you have to actually sustain the clearings and not re-engage with the entities or the behavior patterns or that which is completely neurosynaptically wired into brain and behavior. So there's the clearing of the karma, and then there is correcting the actions or correcting our spiritual path forward. That also has to happen. And I think that's what's getting lost, because we're working things on the higher dimensions, but we have to work them in the lower chakras and in the lower dimensions of consciousness simultaneously.
Yes. But this is why they also say that you can heal other versions of yourself and alternate realities by doing the work right now.
Absolutely. That's what I believe for me, that's what the inner alignment soul retrieval is. I believe we're healing it here, but we're also correcting it. And when we correct it nice and solid in every aspect of ourselves, it will trickle back. It's like everything gets recapitulated, but we have to sustain it. We can't just go back to old behavioral patterns, and the brain and body is set for those patterns. So what the clearings and the healings do is it gives us a choice point, rather than feeling like we have to go with the way the Whitewater River is going. Like karmically, we're just going to go in that direction. But a clearing or a cutting of that allows us a new path, but it's going to feel like we're swimming upstream, because our brain, our body, our breath, every part of us is wired for that karma.
Beautifully said. And I love that. For so many different people that are wondering, probably, if you don't mind explaining what soul fragmentation is and how it occurs.
Yeah. Well, so I studied as a galactic shaman. I know that sounds, but that's probably not too weird in this community.
I would say in this group, that's perfectly normal. We know exactly what you mean by that.
So I don't consider myself a traditional shaman. I'm working interdimensionally, and I don't want to say intergalactically, because I don't even know what that would mean, but I suspect intergalactically. And so soul fragmentation. So I have a bit of it. I've defined it, and my definitions are in this book, Inner Alignment Soul Retrieval for Healing Childhood Trauma. And the way I define childhood trauma is any experience that overwhelmed the body, the mind, the nervous system, your emotions, your experiences that got stored in the body and neurosynaptically, mentally, emotionally got really trapped in the body because there wasn't a caregiver to help process that. So how does trauma get trapped? Trauma gets trapped that way. And I'm going to answer your question about soul fragmentation from the trauma perspective. So then when that happens, there's a part of us that feels unworthy, unloved, uncared for, unsafe, and that gets replayed and almost gets a life of its own in our bodies. So that's how I would define soul fragmentation. A part of us gets fragmented into another dimension in a consciousness that's not the highest and greatest truth of our soul's truth. And that's a little bit different than what traditional shamans might say, which is a part of you got fragmented. I believe we are whole beings. And I don't ever believe we're never whole beings. I just believe a part of our consciousness gets wrapped up either in another lifetime or in a trauma packet within ourselves. And our work is to integrate, open up the trauma packet. I think of it as aluminum foil. Like the trauma packet gets aluminum balled and stored. And our work is to systematically kind of open that up and be like, no, you're love. You're okay. I'm safe. It's good. You're good. You have goodness. You're not a bad person, right? So, and then once we start to integrate into that soul aspect, there's less fragmentation and we're able to feel the wholeness that was always there, but the consciousness was wrapped up in another lower frequency experience of ourselves.
Yes.
I don't know. How would you define soul fragmentation?
Well, I just kind of listen to what the guides say, and the guides have explained it that, yeah, you do end up kind of giving parts of yourself away to other people. But in the macro perspective, you are other people. Right. You are everyone. So how can you give a piece of yourself away to someone else when there technically is no one else? You are everyone because you are source.
Right.
So from that perspective, it does kind of seem like you're right. Like you can't possibly give a piece of yourself to someone else because you are everyone. But at the same time, it's like human minds are so fragile. They're so powerful, but they splinter all the time. They can get so easily damaged through all kinds of different actions or even just seeing something can fragment the human mind. So it's like, I already consider us to be kind of like we're disassociated sub-personalities of source in a way. So I feel like the soul fragmentations are further disassociations from the collective. So it's like fragment of a fragment of a fragment of a fragment. And it just keeps getting smaller and smaller depending on the perspective that that fragment has.
What's fascinating to me, Lara, just to build on that, is that when we go into second dimension consciousness to actually heal the trauma or the fragmentation itself, when the mind is not involved, the trauma doesn't feel as traumatizing. So the fourth dimension
dwells on it. That's why the ego a lot like re-scratches the wound repeatedly.
Exactly. The soul and the part that's fragmented lives in the what is. And so I'm going to use the word drama, but there's less drama in the trauma packet or chaos or meaning around it. It's like, oh, this bad thing is happening. Oh, I'm sad. Like it's really very simple when you get into even a major big T trauma in the body. It's when the mental body is active. And this is the whole path of yoga. Yoga says yoga is the calming or the cessation of the vrittis or the waves of the mental and emotional body. So whole Vedic sciences are built on working with the mental and emotional layer, mano, maya, kosha, the mental and emotional layers of the body, and working consciousness into divine consciousness or God consciousness, because where there's divine consciousness, there's no separation. So the separation lives in the mental and emotional layer of the body.
Wow.
And so fragmentation itself is a misnomer in a way, because we can never be fragmented from ourselves, but the mind fragments.
Yes.
Those are really deep concepts.
It can happen in so many different ways. It's unbelievable. And I asked the guides, I'm like, does this happen only through trauma? And they said, no, sometimes you just give parts of yourself away.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of somebody, they say with old poetry, they'd be like, I gave a piece of my heart to him and he took it and walked away, or something like that. That, in my opinion, is kind of like a soul fragment, because you gave a piece of yourself to someone and whether or not they wanted to keep that piece is irrelevant. They still, it still was kind of gifted away. And I've asked a couple times when I'm returning soul fragments to people, because there are certain soul fragments that are ready to be returned. And when they become ready, it's almost like you can call them back to you. And so this one person I was doing this clearing on, and I asked about this, and they said, oh yeah, she gives her heart to everybody. She gives soul fragments to everyone because she's so giving. Like she's the type of person that would give her shirt off her back for somebody in need. And it's very much like a white knight complex kind of thing they explained, where she just wants to run in there and be like hero and save everybody. But every time she did it, especially when she didn't need to, she would fragment again and give parts of herself away. And some of those parts would be discarded. People are like, like it's whatever.
Yeah.
So
I completely believe that. I completely believe that. And I've seen it when, like, I'll see walls in a heart, or I'll see like the emptiness, and that work of reintegrating that part or the identity. So why would someone give their heart away if I mean, yes, that could come from generosity, but if it came from a soul generosity, there would be no loss. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in order for that to happen, there has to be a deeply seated part of that person that feels unworthy or unloved, or like they need to give themselves to get the love, right? So that is part of deficiency-based love. It's not true love. It's scarcity-based love or unworthiness-based love. And that's part of the healing process.
A lot of people that try and buy your affection as well.
Yeah.
Rather than actually doing the work, they just try to shower you with gifts and things. That's also a form of neglect, but neglecting what you're supposed to be working on and just trying to make people like you, rather than actually wondering whether or not these people are even worthy of you being around them. Because a lot of people end up taking more than, you know what I mean? They just take. And when you have such a giving nature, it makes it very difficult, some people, to set a limit for how much they give.
Yeah.
Like that one quote, givers need to set limits because takers rarely do.
Yeah.
So how do you even find that balance? I guess setting boundaries and just listening to your intuition?
I see it as the heart chakra. So like the visual I have for the heart chakra is that the left side of the body receives and the right side of the body gives, right? If you give without receiving, you're going to be in deficiency, right? You die. Yeah. If you give too much and you're not receiving, you're in reserves. Right. And if you take too much and you don't give, there's a buildup, right? That happens. And so being in the flow of the universe, or the abundance of the universe, is truly having a balance between what we receive and what we give. And so if you have a closed heart, you're not giving and you're taking, and there's an imbalance there. Karmically, there's an imbalance. And if you have too open, or you're too sensitive, or you're a bleeding heart and you're giving, but you're not giving to yourself, or you're not receiving from other people, that's not healthy. That's actually abusive to yourself. And so in our society, that's rewarded in our society. That's goodness in our society. But like
even for your boss, they expect you to work tirelessly and burn out for your boss.
Or as a mother, like someone just put into the comments, like, as mothers, we're supposed to give. And that's what makes us a good parent, mothers, fathers, right? And is that the highest and greatest good? And what does that teach our kids? And how is that okay? And at what point do we shift into, oh yeah, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on someone else? Because there's no award for being completely depleted after 18 years of raising a kid. In fact, that's where we often have people in their 50s come to us, empty nesters. They've identified themselves with their children so much that they don't know who they are, and they have no relationship left because everything went to the kids. And so finding that balance is so tricky. I personally have raised 3 children, and I don't know the balance. Like, I never perfected it. And I think it's different for every person, but
when you have a vocation, it's hard to perfect something like that, to find that balance, because you are your work. You live your work. I'm the same way. So it's hard to switch off between the work mode and the mom mode, or at least to have like downtime. Because in my brain, I'm always working, and that creates burnout. This is part of the reason why my guides were giving me shit about the fact that I'm not finding that balance of self-care and work. So self-care really is the
This is a really good point. My work ebbs and flows. Like I will be working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then I'll tell the divine and the universe, okay, I need a break. And like everything will slow down to a stop and I'll have 1 or 2 clients. And then that'll last for 3 months until I let myself get bored. Like, I know that sounds silly. I start painting. I start using my other faculties and like creating. And then I pay really attention to the kids until the kids are like, can you please go back to work? You're bugging the shit out of me. But I do it so that I can regenerate myself. And universe will shut it off for me. It's like this deal that we have because I tend to overwork and overdo. And so maybe I've set it up that way because if people keep coming, I'm going to keep serving.
Yes,
But there
exactly.
are like, I will not say no to someone who says, I am having a trauma response. Can you help me? I'm going to be like, yeah, of course I'm going to help you. Yep. So I don't know if I asked for it. I'm sure I did ask for it from my guides, but they'll just like literally turn off the spigot and it'll be crickets. And then I'll re-enter my life in that way. I'm probably ADHD as well. So I'll like hyper focus on one thing and then hyper focus on another. I'll like spend a couple months. Each of these books that I wrote were like me in a 3-month hyper focus. So I love my gift of neurodivergence because I've learned how to work with it. Like I'll go into hyper painting mode and like produce tons of paintings and but that's how I keep that.
Somebody drags you out of that hyper focus as well, you know, when you're really focused.
I know how to do that now though. I figured that out and they know how to tap me out of it. So it's like setting up systems in my life to be able to work with like that self-awareness of how I ebb and flow. But I'm sharing that because those who are overgivers or doers or on our passionate work path, there are ways to set it up with our guides to like literally shut off the spigot. And then financially, even to like, to know that my work goes in ebbs and flows and like that. And that's how it's set up. I'm not a salary person. Like there will be a flow and then we'll be, you know, just kind of laying low for a few months. And that's the only way I've been able to work it so as to not burn out. And I've been doing this for 7 years, pretty intensively, 10 years, 12 years since I started doing yoga teacher trainings.
Very nice.
So there's ways.
It's practice, right? You just got to start taking initiative for yourself and focusing on self-love and self-care and making sure that your own needs are met. And I know it's a challenge for a lot of people, but.
And working ego identity, right? Yeah. Like my ego identity as a mother, my ego identity as a healer, my ego identity, like, I don't know. Who am I if I don't do this work? Who am I if I'm not a mother? Who am I if I'm not a wife? Who am I if I'm whatever? Really being able to be with myself without all of the roles. And that's like a mini crisis that I'll self-induce just to make sure I stay in check and humble with who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. I like what Leanne just said. I'm learning it's okay to ask for help. I have such a hard time with it.
Yeah.
Asking for help was one of my biggest challenges too. I'm Miss Independent. In fact, it was funny. I was when I was leaving the airport trying to get my luggage. My luggage got stuck on the conveyor belt. And this big man comes up and he's like, "You need any help?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got this." And I nearly fell and got stuck myself. And
don't need help.
Me struggle with it. And he's got this look on his face like, "You sure you don't need me? I'm still right here." And I was like, no, I got this. And I'm like pulling on it. And he was like, "All right, do your thing." And I did handle it. I had it handled. Thank you very much. But at the same time, I'm one of those people where I'm like, no, I got this. Like, this is my challenge. Thank you very much. Let me see what I can do here.
And they say hyper independence is a trauma response, right?
Yes, it is. I know. Because you had nobody that you could count on, so you had to only count on yourself.
Right.
Yep. So
That said, I'm going to now say the opposite. The opposite is doshically, when like energetically, astrologically, there is hyper independence as well. I mean, I've raised 3 really fiery and hyper independent kids. They don't identify as having trauma. Although, do you want to know something really fascinating that I'm just starting to learn? Please. I don't think it's until your prefrontal cortex is fully developed around 25 to 30 that we start to develop the trauma stories from our childhood. So I think I'm waiting. My 3 daughters are my experiment. Like, do you feel like I'll ask, do you feel like you had trauma? No, I didn't have trauma. Well, moving across the country was a little traumatic, but so I'll ask them at different developmental points what their beef is. And I'm just starting to see my 20-year-old start to create the stories of her beef in life. Yeah. And so I find it really fascinating. I think we're all going to have either small T trauma or big T trauma. And then again, the karma, the energetic tendencies, if there's a lot of pitta, a lot of will chakra energy, a lot of hyper independence that comes from the fire in the constitution, there may be just stories that we develop that fit the narrative. And because the body says, you didn't do enough, we might still develop those trauma stories because it fits the body's signals of people aren't doing enough for me. I need to do it for myself. And so even though I have the trauma filter, I also am giving space for what the path of developing the story of our lives is and how we do that, because it's kind of cool to watch. I thought I would, knowing what I know about trauma and raising 3 daughters, I was like, oh man, like divine gave me a job and a half, right? Like I didn't know what being parented was. And now I'm supposed to parent these 3 daughters and do it healthfully, knowing the amount of trauma that can be caused. But I just don't know if it's inevitable. Like I think it's inevitable to have these experiences of hyper independence or whatever patterns we're set out to do in this lifetime. And then to have the stories that come along with it.
Yes.
So
your daughters are so blessed to have you. You're so good at this.
All I do is sit around and noodle these concepts.
I love that. So you've got this 4-week online training that it's a healing journey. Yes. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So in the past, you and I have talked about the violet consuming flame from Saint Germain. Yes. And, I've been, Daniela said this the other day, and I love that she said this. She's like, well, you're a keeper of the violet flame. I'm like, I am a keeper of the violet flame. Like I felt so seen in that moment. Like my first book, I waited months for it to get complete. And it wasn't until the violet flame teachings came into my life, it dropped into page 111 in the book. And then the book was violet. Like it was almost as if my life was waiting for the violet flame to come in. And so the violet flame has been the light substance that I use to clear my energy field, for protection, to anchor the divine light. It's a 3-fold frequency of divine love, divine power, divine wisdom. It's actually 3 flames: the pink, the golden, and the blue flame. And so this is so near and dear to my heart, to be able to get the violet flame, to get the divine light out into the world so people feel empowered to command the light into any circumstance. And there's a lot of miracles and manifestation that can be done if you start to work with the light more systematically. So the 4-week journey is going to be us working with the 7 sacred flames. And we're going to work with each flame. And each week, we're going to take 2 of the flames into the week. And then we're going to get data. I always say, you know what? Don't believe in this woo-woo stuff. Get the data. And so we're going to get data on what each of the flames do and affect in our lives and in our families' lives, because the divine works like that. It can really precipitate and create miracles. Everybody's saying, I love the violet flame, right?
I was going to say, you guys jinxing each other and say it at the same time.
Literally at at 9:02 a.m. I love the violet flame. I love the
They
violet
both
flame.
said it at the same time. That's funny.
Yeah. So let's break down the science of the violet consuming flame. Let's break down how to actually best use the violet flame, and let's anchor it into the daily life and into our families' lives and into our home and into our land, so that we can really start to use this light substance in a way that feels like, I know this sounds silly, but like the violet flame can work for you. It can be like one of your staff in your life. Like you can work with it. You could say, hey, today I need you to remove the wackiness that's coming out of my daughter. Please restore her back to love. And the angels and the ascended masters of the violet flame will get to work. And so there's ways to command the light into our lives. We don't need to be weaklings that are like, oh, I'm suffering over here. Please help me. I'm dying. Like, no, we don't have to do that. We can stand in our power and command the light like the ascended master that we are.
Oh, beautifully said. Speaking of ascended masters, I see you've got Siddhartha representing in there, 108.
Yeah.
Love that.
I mean, if you're going to price something, why not take a sacred number and go with that, right?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I installed violet flamethrowers to protect my home in the astral.
Yeah.
Love it, Michelle. You can get as clever as you want with the astral. You can visualize all sorts of things.
Completely. It
Love
can be
that.
really powerful, like Shiva energy, really strong commanding energy. So that's going to be
Lord
fun.
Shiva actually popped in the other day. It's funny you mentioned him. I was sitting here at like 1 o'clock in the morning, just typing up some reports and doing some work. And the next thing you know, my whole side of my head basically like it rang like a bell, and then my whole head started ringing like a bell. And it was one of the weirdest feelings I've ever felt in my life. Like my whole side of my head, it felt like it got hit with an energy wave. And my ears started ringing so loudly. And so I texted my friend Bradley because I was just talking to him and he's a medium. So I'm like, can you just tell me, can you find out who the hell that was? And he's like, I'm picking up that was Lord Shiva.
Lord Shiva.
And he rang a gong in your ear. And I was like, holy shit. So I checked in with a different medium in the day later on the next day. And I'm like, any idea who came in last night and did something to my ear? And he's like, oh yeah, that was Lord Shiva. And I was like, holy shit.
Shiva's powerful. And the feminine aspect of Shiva is Durga and Kali. And they've got swords and they're like chopping off the heads of the demons.
I mean, that's find out.
Yes, it's powerful energy.
Yes. And so when I asked why, they said strength. He came to give you strength and to raise your vibration. And I was like, thank you. Love you, Lord Shiva. He's one of my favorites. But yeah, it's just amazing how much assistance we get when we are starting to tune up that vibration, once we start getting aligned with our true life purpose. And then the next thing you know, you're getting all kinds of exciting things happening and people dropping in. My house is like a bus station for spirit right now.
You're so blessed that you're so attuned to it in that way. Like for me, all of my signals come in through my body. I'm more clairkinesthetic. So
I can feel it, but I can't, I'm heads or tails of what I'm feeling. That's what I'm trying to figure out what I'm feeling and why I need to go seek external validation through other mediums. So, but we're all working our way up, as they say, in vibration and experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
What an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah, thank you for bringing what you bring to this world. I feel like how frank you are and how just out there and down to earth you are. It just reaches so many people. So thank you for your work and for your understanding of all of the dimensions and the energies that can come everybody's way. You're truly holding the light in a powerful Shiva kind of very, very beautiful.
You. Likewise, it takes one to know one, as they say. Yeah. So thank you, Kim. And so for you guys, make sure that you check it out. Kim's class is going to be a 4-week course. That starts Monday, May 19th, and it runs through June 9th, every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. And it'll be about an hour and a half to 2 hours per session. And it's 108 for the course. So I'll drop that link one more time. This is one of the best things you can do for yourself, is just to educate and put new practices and see what works best for you. And I love the Violet Flame. I absolutely love Saint Germain. He's popped in quite a few times for clearings as well. We're very blessed to have the backup and support that we do from Spirit.
It's true. Saint Germain is the guardian of America, and he is the holder of the Violet Flame. So he's the ambassador of the Violet Flame right now. I believe it switches. And he's really good at building businesses and structures, which is really cool if you're trying to implement structure or you're trying to really anchor something in this physical realm. He's a great guide to help do that.
I'm going to share your link to your book as well. Kim is on Amazon, and thank you so much, Mark, for reminding me of that. You're so helpful, Mark.
Yeah,
Mark also shared the link.
Yeah, and if you go to my website, KimberlyBeekman.com, I have podcasts, I have YouTube channel, I have lots of we do a free live. I do a free live meditation at 12:15 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. So you can pop into that as well. There's a lot of free resources out there because I want the light anchored into humanity. It's kind of needed right now. Duality has taken over, and we need to lift the consciousness beyond duality. So
yes, we are doing that. Exactly. I really feel good about it too, because you see rapid things happening in short periods of time. I mean, ascension is no joke. We truly are ascending right now. We just don't notice.
Yeah.
So what a time to be alive. We're very blessed.
It is. It's exciting. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so
it was
much
really
for
nice
joining me today. It was such a wonderful chat,
you.
Kim.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody that has popped in to join us. Thank you so much for all the questions and comments. We really love how much you guys interact with the chat. So thank you. And I hope you all have a magical day. And be sure to check out Kim's class. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Thanks. Love you guys.
Love you. See you guys soon. Have a good day. Bye.